Matt, did you kind of get Rutgers feels there and then kind of assess the last 15 seconds of that game from your vantage point?
Yeah, well, obviously, you get put in those positions just like we did in Rutgers from an offensive standpoint. And they know we're going to go to Zach, and they double. I thought Zach made some really good decisions at the end of the Rutgers game. Fletcher made a big shot at the end of the Rutgers game. Brandon Newman was right on the mark and just barely missed that three. But he made the right decision when those guys go in double like that, especially when he dribbles the ball. Tonight they did the same thing. We felt like if we could get Fletch ball side, and once he dribbled and made his move, that we thought they would actually stay. We were just trying to get him one-on-one and then set something up weak side. But if they kept doing what they were doing, then we wanted him to be in place to be able to make that shot. And Zach did a good job of making that thing. I think a lot of people look at things in theory and say, like, hey, your best player's got to take the last shot. Your best player's got to make the best decision. And you can't dictate everything. The other team will dictate some things. They came hard on the trap, and I thought he made a great decision, and Fletch made a huge shot.
To say about Fletcher's resilience, he was 0 for 6 with 4 turnovers and didn't start the second half.
Right, yeah. He's very confident in himself, in himself. And, guys like that, want the ball in their hands. And we thought David Jenkins and Mason really gave us a spark in the first half, and we rewarded them by starting them. You want, when you don't start somebody, you want the double positive. You want the response from the person who now gets to start, and then you want the response from the person who got put then on the bench. A lot of times you don't get that. You get a double negative. You get a guy that goes in now that then doesn't play as well as he did off the bench, and vice versa. And I thought both of those guys did some good things. David made some shots for us. Then Fletch obviously came through in the clutch and showed a lot of moxie.
Matt, I thought your comments about Braden were the sounds of a coach who knew how he was going to respond to that sort of thing. Right. What you kind of learn about him tonight?
Well, that's who he is, man. He's competitive, just like Fletch. Like, those guys are, very intelligent about the game, for true freshmen, and they believe in themselves. And sometimes when you struggle, you need that. Everyone's going to struggle at some point, whether that's their shooting or their play or whatever. You just want to see people respond and get back out there and compete. And we're fortunate. We're very fortunate. We didn't have a very good start to this game, and it took us a while to settle into it. Then obviously, we're not better in Ohio State. We just, in this game, we're one possession better, just like we weren't in the previous game. But they obviously have a really good team, and they're well coached.
Matt.
Yes, sir.
Sensabaugh is obviously one of the toughest people to guard in the entire conference. How did Ethan Morton do, especially late in the game?
You just can't let him get deep and get to a sweet spot. He can make those threes and dribble in place, but we wanted to kind of try our best to get him out of rhythm. But when he gets to his spots, he's going to make those shots. He's a good player. He reminds me of a guy that I played with in college when he gets to those spots with those pull-ups. And now you're just hoping, right? You're just putting a hand up, or you're jumping, or you're just trying. We got to do a better job of trying to keep him pushed out and making it longer. Doesn't mean he can't make them. I just don't think he makes them at the high clip that he did tonight. But really good player for a true freshman. He's a fantastic player. Very, very skilled and very poised.
Matt.
Yes, sir.
How'd you assess their plan for Zach tonight, and how effective it was?
Well, first of all, it's not fair to them. They lose one of the best players in our league that goes out after 3 minutes. Zed Key is a really good player, so that wasn't fair to them. But I thought Zach played well. He had a couple shots that I thought he hurried around the basket. It's one of those things when you're 6 for 11, it's really not that bad of a percentage, but when you shoot from 5 feet, for him, those 2 jump hooks he made in the second half were really good. But, I like his ability to pass now. That's what sets him apart, in my opinion, is that now if you want to come, we got to be able to step up and make shots, which tonight we made some in the second half and at the end of the first half. But he's doing a great job. His effort is there. He plays 32 minutes, and he's just got to keep plugging and just kind of stay with things and keep demanding the ball. They're going to do whatever they have to do to try to keep the ball in their hands. The thing that they were doing, they had some success. They were putting Eugene Brown on him. For a while, like, they had a little bit more success there. Now, eventually, we're going to hopefully get the ball to him in those situations, and they know that, so they got to get Okpara back in there. But I thought Okpara did a good job. I liked what they did. The thing that happens with teams that double, that don't usually double, they're pretty good at their double. They're not very good at their rotation because guys aren't used to it. And most coaches, they just don't like rotations because when you get in rotations, you get behind plays, and then people start driving the ball, then you start fouling. And Ohio State doesn't double much. And so when they've had to double, their double's pretty good, but then sometimes tonight their rotation was good, and then sometimes tonight, there wasn't a guy coming to the shooter, there. So it takes a lot of practice. We double a lot ourselves. So if Zed Key would have stayed in the game, we'd have doubled him the whole game because that's what we do. But there's times that I'm concerned about it because it's hard to rotate sometimes.
Matt, you scored 4 points in the last minute to erase their lead. The steal by Morton off the Sewing pass in the corner.
Yes.
When you have plays like that in clutch moments, like how much of that comes from preparation? How much of that comes from guys making plays? What do you see that enables players or teams to make plays like that in those kinds of moments?
Yeah, first of all, it was a great kind of recognition, and it wasn't anything that we did. It was just a good read by him and good instincts by him. And, to be able to get that steal, you don't always know what they're going to go to. So when you get in the huddle and you start talking about it, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Like, they're going to ISO Sewing or they're going to ISO Sensabaugh. At least you think, right? So they do a lot of ISOs, especially late in the game. You want to take up Sensabaugh's space. You want to keep Sewing off his left hand. But you don't know what's coming, technically. They can run whatever they want to run. But you kind of know where the ball's going to be. So you really just get in the huddle and you talk about 2 to 3 different scenarios you think might be coming. But more than anything, you always say, stick to our defensive rules. A lot of times guys in those situations at the end, they become watchers. And so that's always like a lot of plays right there happen. And then all of a sudden, we had that stretch there for it seemed like 2 possessions where they got like 3 or 4 offensive rebounds. And they looked like they were the ones jumping, and we were, our feet were nailed to the ground in those 2 sequences. And, just trying to tell them, give multiple efforts. Don't foul the jump shooter. Sensabaugh came through a couple times on us and got those fouls, and just talked about trying to not chest him at that point when it gets that deep and go up. And then, Zach's so big, but if Zach comes up, he struggles. He makes one sudden move. He's normally not going to make the next play. So then you do that, and Okpara then gets a dunk, then you feel like a fool. You'd rather someone shoot a pull-up than dunk the basketball, obviously. So we just kind of talked through everything. And I thought the play just at the end right there, our guys did a good job of kind of sniffing it out. They were trying to bring him back around, and those guys were right there, and they just kind of closed it down on him.
Matt, number one or not, I think it's fair to say your team is still developing, still improving, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What can they take from winning one like this, but also doing so, getting hot from 3 and seeing what they're capable of when they're making shots?
Yeah, well, that's the one thing that's kind of shocked me is our inability to knock down perimeter shots. Today we make 13 threes. We haven't done that in a long time. And I just feel like our shooting is much better than we have shown. But I think it's also a strength. We've always been able to get quality big men. Obviously, we do now. But with those guys, you got to put skill around them where they got to make a decision. If they're not making any shots at all, they don't have to make a decision. The decision's easy, And now, the one thing about being able to make threes, we get 39 points tonight on threes. That's what gets you. Those threes, you can make them in a run. You make 2 or 3 in a row. It can be the difference in a game. But just trying to get those guys to understand about having quality possessions and not having empty possessions. Tonight, 14 turnovers is way too many. That's more of our issue than anything is when we turn the ball over.
Last one, Brian. And then what can this game mean for Jenkins?
Hopefully it gives him confidence. You don't have a lot of guys on your team that, have made 343s. He's struggled from 3, but he's had, great experience in his career of making shots, but he's also been in games and played a lot in the past. He hasn't played a lot for us. So now you're in a different role and your minutes are cut. It's hard to get in those rhythms, but hopefully this gives him some confidence and obviously he can get in games and, and really help us and stretch the defense.